Howdy y'all, it's Cody from the Keepers Nerdum. How you doing? Thought it would be a fun little thing just to talk about, obviously if you've been watching some of my videos lately, some things that I've been playing on in the background of Sekiro. And give you some thoughts. Give a little bit of a review over the game. Try not to go into very many spoilers at all, because I think this is one of those games that you need to truly explore on your own to appreciate. And I haven't fully finished it yet because it's, well, a couple of things you should note. If you've watched my gameplay, and some of you have and made even a comment or two, and rightfully so, I'm not that great at hardcore video games. Just not. Never have been. Love them. Think it's interesting. But struggle. Just struggle. And I love the fact that I can at least get through it eventually or figure out some way to do so. And thankfully there are things online that help you go, okay, here's how you actually work through this and how you beat this thing. Because I struggle with these kinds of games. I got into Dark Souls several years ago and found out that I love the series, but I'm also not the best at timing games and really getting things down pat. But the more I played them, the more I love them, you know, and Elden Ring was just amazing as well, right? And Sekiro is a whole different monster in a way, and I really appreciate that actually from software. That they took game mechanics that already have been in basically all of their games. The idea of resting at a bonfire, of using souls to purchase things, and that kind of concept. Now, and they would take these things and they'll learn from it and they'll change it up a little bit. I think that's really cool. Now, what's interesting about Sekiro is compared to some of the other games, parrying was a thing that you did in other games. But in Sekiro, it is like the focus of the game in so many of the battles. That the idea is you perfectly time your counter so that way you drop their posture to the point where you can get a death blow on them because you're wearing them out. It's really a neat system, right? And also there's the other side of you can also just wear their health down to the point where they die. Now, bosses are a little different, that they have to have a death blow. And I think this is where the game really shows an interesting strength and also challenge to it, because you are in a game that is very, very different than any other of those games. Because one of the things that's really frustrating but also interesting about this game is it really rewards often stealth play. And I like that. I think that's actually an important component of video games, that they reward you for doing something that you normally wouldn't. So that way you can get behind people and defeat them and do what you need to and change the whole game plan, right? But what's weird about that is whenever you get into boss fights, the idea of stealth goes away. And that's a frustrating thing. That is my one, criticism, if I have anything at all about the game at all. It's just that you're rewarded for the stealth play, and then in mini bosses, sometimes you can actually get stealth death blows, so that way you can take their health down to one strike rather than just 2 health bars. That's really cool when they allow that, because it rewards you for the stealth. But then in boss fights, like actual full-on bosses and not mini bosses, that's not a thing that can happen other than some very few random exceptions because of figuring out gameplay mechanics that shouldn't let it happen but do. Right? That's kind of the funny thing. Like, it's not supposed to be a thing, but it's possible technically. But it's not because of stealth per se, except for maybe the corrupted monk. Anyway, this is just one of those interesting things about the game, because it's very much a in-your-face, get in, get fighting, but also be very wary of, and this has been a Dark Souls thing too, of mobs, because mobs will overwhelm you and you will be taken down very quickly and you will find yourself gone, right? Game over, having to reload the area. And I think that's an interesting point with it. The biggest thing I will say about Sekiro that I think just really blew me away so far, and I haven't quite finished it, is the design of the locales, and also the differences in a lot of the boss fights. There's a fight on a bridge that is just against a very heavily armored opponent that I think just the gameplay concept of that was hilarious, because it's different and it makes you think about things in a very different way, and I appreciate that. I don't know that the game truly trains you in, like, some games are really good at this, where they go, all right, you've just learned this new skill, now you're going to have to implement it. Legend of Zelda, think like that. And this game doesn't necessarily do that, and goes, all right, here's the tools that you have, you figure it out. And often there's a few tools that you go back to pretty often. The idea of you have a prosthetic limb that's somehow functional as just a regular arm, very much like this is ancient Japan, but also with some magic mixed in too. And I think that's fun and fascinating, and it's really cool because the prosthetic arm really gives you so many more options of gameplay. Very neat. I'm really excited actually for New Game Plus, because I think it's going to be a fun little power trip for a bit of just going, I am better at the game, but also stronger, and so can get into these battles way more effectively. It's such a beautiful game. Yeah, I'd already said that, but it really is. Just the locales, the concept that they're portraying, it gives you, it's not just dark like Dark Souls 3 necessarily, it's that Elden Ring feel, It's like they learned from Sekiro and went, man, people want us to have these beautiful, epic locales that change drastically. Let's do that, because Sekiro really hits that home, but it's such a crazy, interesting world that it is in. There's, some other little things that's interesting. There's definitely some mini bosses that repeat quite often, and that's typical of some of their games, especially Elden Ring. That wasn't a thing necessarily as much in Dark Souls 1, but since Dark Souls 1, they've often repeated some of those fights. So it happens, but it's just a frustrating thing that they do sometimes, and this is no exception. Sometimes it is nice to come back upon a boss you've already previously fought in a way, and it looks a little different, or it is like the exact same thing, and go, all right, I know how to fight this, because it rewards you for going, you did learn, and now you're better for it. And that is nice. Whenever you start seeing them 3 or 4 times, not okay, right? And there's a few of those where it's like, okay, this isn't that big of a game. There shouldn't just be this many of those fights. And there are some boss fights that are just silly. There was one that was up on a tree that's supposed to be, apparently has some pretty challenging attacks, and I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna bum rush in and just start smacking at it and see what happens. And it didn't do anything. I won. Like, it was the easiest fight ever because I just overwhelmed it, and that's not supposed to work because most fights don't let that happen. And in this case, it was just like the AI didn't know what to do, because normally people are pretty, I guess, cagey about engaging stuff because that's what we're trained to think. Very interesting. So, overall, great game. Very cool. The prosthetic tool gives you so much access to so many crazy, awesome abilities and fun shenanigans against bosses that just really make for some fun gameplay. And this game overall is just fantastic. And I hope, on the screen you're getting to just see some interesting fights and some interesting details of the game that it really is. It's worth picking up, and especially if you can get it on sale for like half off, it's worth it. It is fantastic. It is so much fun. It is so frustrating too, right? Especially if you're not a hardcore, epic, get good player, right? And I'm in that boat. I'm not there, but I still love playing with this game, and it's because it's hard, and it'll challenge you, and it'll test your patience. But when you win, it will totally change your perspective on it as you win a fight. But let me know what you think of Sekiro down in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all for joining me. Take care.